see if they finished the pages.
It's McFarland Park.
How you doing?
Is that a district? Yeah, I think it is.
Oh, is she?
Provide them an update on that.
That's the right idea. That's what I was.
Because we have between the
Business in there.
all the kids stuff and our luggage and all that.
We went to Tallahassee next week for 3 days. We went to like that. I don't know if that's what. I don't know if that's really a vacation.
Really? Oh, I haven't seen it.
I don't know if that's going to be a vacation, but
I've seen it like four times. 3 times.
Did you go to Rockland?
she went to Facebook.
That's you, huh?
Council approved.
Oh, listen to you.
It's
Man.
total cost is 165. We'll say over
Better
2
than
years.
games.
165.
Yeah, and they're going to be 5 this year, 20,000 next year. You realize there's a permitting fee, initial permitting fee to go through FBC. It's 2-year approval
Oh yeah.
with,
Yeah, it was good.
and you can adjust the fee. You can pay instead of 145 this year, you can pay 146.5 and then 18.5 next year. Do you think it's, yeah, they want $1,500 a permit fee, you go under the additional, so it's more.
Oh
They can
yeah.
make it up on the back end by not increasing the cost of the project. Would you think that we'd be able to?
I would say how you know you're there, but.
Without going to council?
From an existing account?
In capital though, that's a problem.
Yeah, we have money.
No, but it's not for you, but it's, I mean, this is an example for someone, IT. They have money in capital, but it's in their repairs and maintenance, no.
Well, no, we haven't.
No, it's going from operating to.
Yeah.
Oh, it is, yeah, going from capital equipment to capital infrastructure.
Ultimately,
Yeah, because the total project.
Only for you. You are probably wore out. You were up to what?
they do.
Crack of dawn.
Oh, yeah, so for your meetings, when they're asking for your mics?
You do
I
know
do- that's good to know.
The most recent FSU graduate.
Oh wow, the chair just turned it on.
No, what it say?
Good afternoon, welcome to McDonald's now.
Yeah. Okay. Wait a minute. Let's look at the polls and see where. Oh, Florida's not ranked.
And the Florida, I was gonna say the Florida graduate said to him, gosh, I don't get to do that.
Good, how you doing?
Yeah.
I don't get that. I don't have that.
Yeah?
Nothing inside of 1800.
Mr. Marine Corps. I was waiting on Mr. Blake.
You're gonna wait for him, you want to wait till 8:30, I mean 7:30.
Where's Mark?
Yeah, you'll be
Where
here.
is he, yeah? Where is he hiding?
No, Mike. You know Mike.
I expected him to be here.
Where are you, Mike?
All right, you guys want me to call the meeting to order? Welcome, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We got 5 people. Mrs. Jenkins, does everybody know Mrs. Jenkins? The staff, you guys know Mrs. Jenkins? Mrs. Barbara Jenkins, you all have probably seen her street.
Mm-hmm.
Mrs. Jenkins hasn't been to a meeting lately, so I'm excited to see Mrs. Jenkins here. That's Mrs. Jenkins.
Oh, yeah.
That's Mrs. Jenkins. She got a street named after her. Everybody's.
Not a common certified.
It's there.
He lives up north.
Yeah, I live in, we ain't gonna have to go.
Can't you tell by that accent he lives up north?
I'm just visiting.
Well, since he's just visiting, I'll let you guys know who we all are. This is Mr. Beauvert. He represents the northwest part of the city and lives out in Lost Lakes. So Councilman and currently Deputy Mayor Beauvert. Did I got that right? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And then you all know Mayor Parrish. And you know Mr. Chicanich, our city manager. And beside him is our assistant city manager, Matt Gurr, who's a newlywed.
How long did you get married?
How long are you?
Been married a long time.
Until someone else gets.
He's been married a couple months at least. So I will let Mr. Canich or Matt will introduce the rest of the staff.
Okay. So on your left, my right, starting front end, we have Ed Weaver, our Public Works Director, Laura Howe, our Assistant Finance Director, Mike Cantaloupe, our Chief of Police, Gene Prince, our Fire Chief, and sitting in the audience is Jonathan Lamb, our Deputy Fire Chief. On my left, your right, we have Angela Clerk, our Assistant City Clerk. Angela Clerk, sorry.
I was like, wow.
I'll take it, I don't care.
Angela Clerk is a clerk.
Angela Ferguson, our Assistant City Clerk, Tammy Timeli, our Administrative Services Director, Jack Walsh, our Utilities Director, and Steve Belden, our Community Services Director.
And John is gonna give us an update on the fire station. I know some of you have not had the fire station presentation yet, like Mrs. Jenkins. So John's gonna do that, and then we'll just answer any questions, let you guys talk about whatever you wanna talk about.
I think so.
Think so?
Okay. Yeah, this is, as Councilwoman Warner indicated, this is kind of an update and a progress report. So we've been doing these for the past year to keep everybody informed. Since September of last year, when council first at a workshop made the decision based on the study performed by an independent consulting firm to evaluate our fire service. So we'll go ahead and get through this. The agenda, just one, to discuss the city's plan to improve the fire service, talk about the renewal and replacement, review the station relocation analysis, looking at all the various criteria and what improvements will happen as a result of the realignments. What are the plans for our existing fire stations? That's one that's a question that comes up a lot. And then what actions or time in terms of what's left to happen and what's the timeline, and then some questions and answers. First, in 2013, as I was being hired as the city manager, pretty much all of council said we need a plan to expand and improve our fire service. That year, besides changing the way we did our fire assessment to make it more fair and equitable, it enabled us to increase the number of, we did increase the number of solo paramedics to enhance our advanced life support services. We also increased our staffing by 4 firemen, which enabled us to have at each of the 3 stations at any given time at least 3 members at each station plus the district fire chief. So that'd be 10 personnel on duty on any given day, at least 10. Sometimes it goes higher depending on vacation. People call out their Kelly days, and so and that was important because that really there's some standards behind that, working with other communities and to make sure we have adequate coverage. And fiscal year 15, last year, we purchased, besides some fire life safety equipment, the biggest purchases was the new ladder truck or apparatus, and then 2 new fire engines. We also purchased the mobile emergency response vehicle. It's like a Polaris. It's got skids on the back with all their gear for the purposes of utilizing that, like we have at Juneteenth, we have at the park. On special events, it helps the fire personnel that are on duty respond to any emergency and in a really tightly contained area with a lot of people, so they get some around. They don't have to. We also had to purchase a new district chief vehicle, if I recall correctly. It had, about 160,000 miles on that thing. It was a Ford Excursion. It was time. And then that year we actually retained the consultant. We did it both, the consultant to do the station location analysis and the architect to do the design. They actually were one contract and one was subbed. And then in 16, this year, we have a new rescue vehicle. We have the cab and chassis in, and they're working on the box to that. And that will be, we believe, about the second week of September, should be coming to us to go in service. And then the other thing is we had to buy the chief a new fire vehicle because it had a lot of miles on it, and he was driving an Impala, and to respond to certain scenes and stuff like that, it's just not conducive, for an Impala is not conducive for that. And we bought some additional fire protection equipment, and then we kind of fine-tuned the design and engineering for the stations. And the plan is in the beginning of fiscal year 2017,
probably the first couple weeks of October, depending on when we're able to go to the market, you pledging our fire assessment revenues. This Thursday, we have myself, Matt, the city attorney, and our consultant will be at a court hearing validating those through the courts. And then we'll be going to the market for the purposes of borrowing money, $8 million to build the stations. First and foremost, I mean, people said, well, how'd you do it? It was really a data-driven decision. We loaded up all the data. We evaluated 5 years of calls for service, both from the city and the county, because we have auto aid agreements and mutual aid agreements. I don't think either of us could operate by ourselves, nor could Rockledge operate by themselves. It's a safety net. We need each other because and the chief can correct me, but to my understanding, you need like almost 15 people on a scene, if there's a fire. And if we have 10 people, we need somebody else to help us, and vice versa. About a couple months ago, 6 weeks ago, we probably spent about 4 hours in Rockledge helping them with a fire one early morning. So we kind of work with each other. So it was based on the calls for service. We analyzed where all the calls for service by type, whether it was like a fire call or whether it was an EMS call, and we plotted those. Actually, we did, but the consultant did. And then they looked at where all the available properties were and where the station should be ideally located to meet certain standards. We also reviewed our mutual aid agreements both with the county and with Rockledge. And I've already mentioned we contract with the consultant to perform an independent analysis. And then they also looked at the spatial needs. How big should the stations be? Because they're more modern nowadays, in terms of their, if we want to extend the life of equipment, we have storage in certain areas versus right now, our stations were built, going far back as 1958. And many people, why do we need the new stations? One, they're outdated, but the growth of the city, both in land area, the population increase and shift, has resulted in inefficient and ineffective service. In terms of providing those fire service protection services to our citizens. There's the National Fire Protection Association has numerous standards. One of them is Standard 1710, which basically says you need to respond within 4 minutes on average 90% of the time. So that was one of our biggest things that we needed to do to increase our response time, and some of the data I show you in a minute will demonstrate where we are and where we will be with the relocation and realignment. Our stations are old and obsolete in terms of, the oldest was built in 1958. The fire service has modernized in terms of we now have female firefighters and male firefighters, and they need to be housed in separate quarters, have separate bathroom facilities, showering facilities, things of that nature. Also, they currently don't meet ADA or OSHA requirements. That's important when it comes to some of the firefighter, fire medics, health and life safety, specifically some of the OSHA issues. I already mentioned the evolution of the fire service. And then the facilities are just not ideally situated or located to optimize our response to call and provide equal service to all residents throughout the city. This was the boundary of the city back in 1994. It's about 7 square miles. You can see we have nothing up north of 528 except for this high point. And then this was the furthest extent, basically Cox Road. This was annexed in late, I think somewhere around that time frame. But that's the boundary map. And now, where are we today? You can see we now go all the way out here. This is 95, so we crossed 95. This is Adamson Road, 524, 520. We have all this property up here, and then all this industrial up here, which, while it is good for the tax base, it presents a whole host of challenges because of the occupancy and the uses that are in that property. Sometimes, there's a lot of combustibles, and there are industrial operations. There's sites up there that we have been to on a frequent basis. Some of the recycling facilities that have caught on fire. You see the plume of smoke going up, and I think we've been there a couple times this year, it seems like. So as you can see, it's expanded here, as well as, we've even annexed this area over here and coming out over here. So we went from 7 square miles to 14, or a little over, around 14 square miles. In terms of our population, this is a chart, back in 1950, we were at 3,500. Really different back then. And then this is phenomenal growth in large measure due to the space industry. In 1958, Station 2 was built, and there's only 12,000, just under 12,300. Station 1 in 1966, it was, it's about 15.5. And then Station 3 in 1981, just over 16,000. So we didn't see that growth like that, so it stabilized. And so we got up there, and then we lost population, but now we're back to growing. Now, the projections for these populations in 19,000 by 2030, we expect to pass that probably in the next couple of years, because they didn't think we were going to be here until probably, I think, 2025 or something like 2020, 2025. So we are back to, where we've got a lot of new residential, and we get a lot of opportunities for redevelopment in our existing areas, in the Diamond Square redevelopment area, in the Cocoa redevelopment area, even opportunities along the Fisk corridor, and then the new development, both north and west of the city within the limits. So the population's changed, moved around, expanded. These are what we call density maps or heat maps, and it the brighter the color means that's the concentration of the phone, the calls for service. So I'm going to focus on the fire calls for service. If you look, if you can imagine this line right here going straight across is 520. So if you see for fire, we have calls up here, out here, here, but this is the center where all our calls for service are for fire. Not saying there's not calls down here or over here or up here, but that's the hot spot, if you will. So for fire calls for service. And then we have emergency medical services, or the ALS, ambulance transport. We don't transport, the county does. But you can see, here's 520 again. Is this, can you see that, or is this blocking? Okay. So you can see, so here's 520. This is probably Fisk Boulevard, about right here, coming through. And so, but you can see the calls for service are right there. 85% of our calls for service are EMS. So that the paramedic transport, of which we rely on the county fire rescue. I mean, not rely on, that's their responsibility to respond as well, and then transport to the hospital in the event of a medical emergency. So, I mean, every second's important. So right now, where are we in terms of our stations? Our existing stations, we have Fire Station 1, Fire Station 2, Fire Station 3, and then we have Station 44 out here, which is the county's. And out of this station, they run 2 rescue units, 44 and 46, they alternate calls. So anybody that has a call for service, up in here or down in here, it's coming from there to be transported to the hospital. Our personnel can arrive on scene, provide the necessary, advanced life support, but when the county comes in, ideally they take over and they transport to the hospital. So, as you can, that's about 2.5 miles from where Station 2 is, and that's important later, because I think it's trying to, as we discuss this. So, as we looked at our considerations for aligning these fire stations, one, we wanted to make sure we met that 4-minute response time, which is the NFPA standard 1710, doing that 90%, capture 90% of the calls, and we wanted to get that 4-minute response time. We need a station east of the railroad. I mean, it's just one way or the other. We have to, wherever it's positioned, we have to have one east of the railroad, especially with a lot of our higher and more dense buildings downtown. Plus, if an emergency happens on this side of the railroad tracks and there's a train, or maybe there's some type of incident, we got to be able to have access one way or the other. Then we also were looking at what sites were readily available or could be easily controlled by the city. And then we need to, in addition to accommodating our existing development areas and, Cocoa Village, the Heart of Cocoa, Diamond Square redevelopment area, Fisk corridor, be able to accommodate the redevelopment there, but also looking at our future growth, up to the north and out in here and west of 95. So with that, this map is very important. Everything that's shaded in brown represents where we cannot get to within 4 minutes. So if you go back to that city limit map, and I won't, but all of this, this, a lot of this, we even have areas right here at College Green, and then some areas out here. So even right here, this is in the city. So we have areas that we're not getting to, so we're not providing our service, probably in the most efficient fashion, making sure everybody gets the service that they need. So what the consultant did, and they were with us at a meeting the other night, but they basically took every one of these dots represents a data point where they evaluated all this criteria I'm going to show you in a minute. They evaluated the criteria for these are theoretically every potential location a fire station could go. And they evaluated all of these. And that just shows you the overlapping of the two down south and this. You see the gaps out in here as well, here and here. So, but here's the criteria, there was 15 scenarios that ultimately evaluated that came out of all that said these are potentially viable ones. And then they narrowed it down, they looked at, each of the scenario, which one met the criteria to optimize and ensure that we could respond in an efficient and effective manner. And they scored all of them, because I'm going to go over every one of these variables. You'll be able to see them more clearly in the next slide, because I know that's a really big chart, but you can see they have a score on them right here. These are so let's go to the next one. These were the characteristics of the top 3 sightings scenarios plus the status quo. And so looking at the status quo, and I have arrows, we have arrows right next to all this, the percent of the city area covered. Right now, we're only covering 66% of the city's area. Whereas, and then percent of all city calls, just under 90%, 89.9%. Total square footage in the city, meaning all the buildings, residential, commercial, industrial, 84%, 84.6%. The building values, covering only about 78% of all the buildings, at least the values of the building. Population, only covering 80% of the population. Of the households, the same, about 80%. And then our elevated and maximum risk properties, those are our schools, our assisted living facilities, elder care, our high hazard occupancies, or such as industrial, or in our heavy commercial, where there could be we want to minimize the potential, not just damage or we want to be able to contain something if it's an industrial nature. So we were at 88 and 92% respectively. So the top 3 scenarios that came out, looking at these, scenario 5B stood out the most because we're taking the percent of the city area covered from just 66% to almost 83%. All city calls from just under 90% to, about a little more than 94%. Total square foot from, again, just over 84% to just under 97%. Building value, 78% to 94%. And then the population, these were I think I've highlighted, at least put a box around them. The percent of total population going from 80% to basically almost 96% of the existing population being able to be covered. Total households going from just under 80% to over 95%. And then for the elevated and maximum risk properties, you can see from the 88, 92% respectively to over almost 98% to 100%. So that's the scenario that was September last year. There was a workshop with council. The consultants came in with the architect, and they presented all the various data, and council chose that, this is the scenario that we needed to move forward with to provide the most efficient and effective service, and ensure all areas of the city are covered equally. So how does that look? Here's our existing stations. Remember, those are our considerations, and I'll just go. And then I remember I told you the brown shaded area depicts where the city cannot respond in 4 minutes. We'll blow it up so everybody can see the difference. It's again station 1, 2, 3. And then what was it?
Little spot near US 1.
Oh yes, yeah, that's right. There's a property off of US 1, which it's the Hooper property. That's very good. That's exactly what it is. Which has residential future land use and zoning on it. Now. So and then station 44. So the brown area is where we cannot. It's outside our 4-minute response area. Now watch the map. That's with scenario 5B. So now we pick up all of High Point, our industrial area, up in here, because that's where the main area is. This area up here. There's still a little bit up here, but there's a little place right here. We get it. Although out here is a little bit of, we'll be honest, a little bit of challenge, but we rely, there's a station 29 up here. But you can see we come out here, all of the, now Cocoa North is in, now all of College Green is in, this is in the county, and this is really, that's Cocoa Conservation Area, and this is at the end of really of a U-turn type a big circle coming out of Cocoa Bay subdivision. And then, getting more of Lost Lakes in, and then we still can't get all this in 4 minutes, but again, we're still relying on, we're working with the county on this. But as you can see, we don't reduce any of our existing coverage to the south, to the east, actually pick up the Hooper property that you mentioned, but we expand north and west, and, so we're getting more coverage with scenario 5B. And I should, that's important, that's based on 1, 2, Station 1 moving a little bit north, what is currently Station 1. What is currently Station 2, is moving at Dixon and Clear Lake essentially, and then 1 going out on 524, but still using this. So it'd be 3 stations for us before counting the county. So with that being the case, there's kind of like, although the circles in large measure, as you see that response map, how it kind of goes like this, because trucks and vehicles don't uniquely just go to the end of a circle within 4 minutes. They may have to travel a different type of road, different level of speed, more traffic signals. There's so many different variables that enter into how determines that how can the station get this truck get over here to Merritt Island in 4 minutes? Well, it's really, that just shows there's less overlap. So we achieved the aggregate 4-minute response time, 90% of the calls, 1 station east of the railroad. These are sites that are readily available. Actually, they're currently under control by the city. They've been purchased, and then it accommodates all of our desire for continued redevelopment. No matter what happens here, we still, in Cocoa Village, Heart of Cocoa, Diamond Square, Fisk Corridor, Dixon, no matter what happens there, we're still going to be in a position to respond appropriately to those calls for service, plus expands it out here, as we mentioned, west of I-95 and north of 524. So the 3 sites, State Road 524, that has been purchased, and the Dixon, that's, if you know where the Sunoco is, it's basically right across the street from the Sunoco, if you will. The Brunson Boulevard, the old city council chambers, we're in the police department, where the police department used to be, that's where station that's, just south of here, we'll move up into there. And then Dixon Boulevard and Clear Lake, where there's Clear Lake High, Clear Lake Middle, the old track, it's right here actually, this whole property that the city now owns. And this is just how, this is the Dixon Boulevard Clear Lake Station, and you can see how it's going to fit. It'll have 4 bays, storage, the fire station, and there's still, you see there's, property here, which the use will be determined later, but it fits on there, and they would have access to from Clear Lake, and then coming out this, here. Because remember that hot spot, if the map went all the way over, it would be over here. Here's the old city council chamber / PD, police department site. Access to Forest Avenue, Brunson, which gets you to US 1 either way. You can see this is just a 2-bay station, storage, and fire, the main fire station. 524, we know that there's a lot of growth going out there. While it's being developed as a 2-bay station, it'll accommodate the ability if needed in the future. So we have to, obviously you don't want to do this, every couple decades. You want to really try to extend it out for a long period of time, is to accommodate potentially an additional, bay, to provide additional service if the area continues to grow or explode as we believe it will. So then we come to the next part, is what's the plans for the existing stations, and this is important. Station 1, it's going to be closed for services. That property will be repurposed for future redevelopment. So it's closed because the station's moving north. Station 2 is going to remain in service. I mentioned that we, in the process of reviewing the agreements with the county and the city of Rockledge, one of the things in our calls for service analysis with the county is the fact that 85% of our calls occur along that Fisk, north of Fisk and 520, and they provide those, they come in because they provide, rescue service and transport. They currently have those 2 rescue units that are running concurrently out on Lake Drive and 520. They want to, and we would like them to because we think it enhances our protection, our service, is bring one of them in, located out of Station 2, and run EMS, transport services at a station, the existing Station 2. So that will provide enhanced services, because all of our data didn't even include the option or even the concept at the time of keeping Station 2 open to provide EMS and transport services out of that station. So that brown map, the shaded area, it arguably to some extent from an EMS standpoint, that area could probably expand to a certain degree. I mean, it just because we now are providing enhanced service, because even if you're able to do 60 miles an hour on 520, you're talking at least 2.5 minutes. So we're talking bringing that service 2.5 minutes closer. And we all know, I mean, in the event of a catastrophic injury or illness or a heart attack or some other type of a seizure, I mean, 2 minutes, 1 minute can make a difference. So we're bringing them 2.5 minutes closer. So they'll be there much closer. And that's why we say it will provide enhanced services to us, because now we're overlapping with our 3-station model. We're bringing that, with that agreement with the county. And we actually have the agreement, City Council, and I'm going to go over it. We just today, the Chief and I reviewed one change that we're seeking to clarify based on some comments from the county, and it was scheduled to go at this next meeting. It's going to go on September 8th because we need the county attorney to sign off on it, and so we'll be set on that, because it's really a minor change, if you will, because the big thing was the lease and all that. So the Station 3, if you're that's the one off of Michigan, that one's going to be closed for service entirely. So that, I mean, I know some of the neighbors and the residents up there are concerned because their station, what they say is their station's going to station or up on 524, but, we're kind of trying to not tie a station to geography, but tie it to the entire city, and how the stations in totality serve the entire city, not any specific area. So Station 3 is going to be closed for service completely. Now, we're going to keep the building. It's the newest of the 3 buildings, built in 1981, but it's going to be retained to store equipment and back up the backup apparatus, such as, when we get the new rescue vehicle or when we get a new engine in, we look at which one we need to surplus, get rid of. But we'll try to keep the one that's in best shape from a fleet standpoint, so it can provide backup if we're getting maintenance done on one of our existing ones that's in service. Because if you don't do that daily maintenance, and I know we go every 3,000 to 5,000 miles, on our cars to get the oil change, get the tires rotated, and just kind of check the fluids. Well, if they don't do that, the life of that vehicle, and they'll take the ladder truck, the tires are $8,000. The tires. I mean, we think we have a heart attack when you pay about $1,000 for a set of tires, $8,000 for the tires. So if we don't do that, it's a $1.2 million investment in the community. We don't want to see it degrade to a point where it's like the life of the vehicle is shorter than it should be. So, and what's really important about, I think, the Station 2 is because when we met with City Council and the consultants presented their stuff, one of the things, the directions the mayor, council, Councilman Blake was very adamant about is we need to, one, figure out a way so we can continue to have a presence and a level of service being provided in Diamond Square. And we had already had engaged in conversations with the county. At that time, it was very conceptual, just a couple meetings talking about the possibilities. And they said, staff, you need to work on that. And we've been successful in doing that. So that station's going to stay open through a partnership with Brevard County. Again, this is just rehashing. It's based on the calls for service. 85% of our calls for service come there, hence the need bringing that EMS service in closer to provide we would say an enhanced level of service and providing our auto aid agreements. And then we've also looked at our agreements with the city of Rockledge, and we've engaged conversations with them. I mean, we have an existing mutual aid agreement, but we've talked about, I've talked with their city manager, chiefs talked with their fire chief about the auto aid agreement. And what only highlights that is both cities have the need. When they had the fire about 6 to 8 weeks ago, I mean, our units were there for 3 to 4 hours, helping them. And when we had a fire,
Right, in my neighborhood, years ago, when 3 years ago, rockets came in right here.
yes.
And they were
And then the other thing is, why it's important is like in the central Brevard, correct me if I'm wrong, Chief, we're the only one that has mainland that has a ladder truck.
That's correct.
So if Rockledge was to have a serious issue with some of their industrial areas, they would need our support in a big way. So that's why we have to work together. I don't think any city nowadays operates in a vacuum, or we're not an island, because we need the help of one another. So this is the call data from the county, and this really highlights, the type of calls. The blue represents EMS calls, and the red fire calls. Now, if you see a red call within the magenta or the green areas, the magenta area, that's a mutual aid call or an auto aid call. So that's where the county's coming in to help us, or Rockledge, because you see a lot of them in Rockledge, actually, or we've requested they come in to help us, whether they automatically come in or we request them. So, and here's their station. That's the star. It's kind of hard with this map. It's very busy. But the blue calls, and if you go back to that heat map or that density map I showed you, remember I said it's right in here is the calls for service. Here's 520. Here's your calls for service. And that's EMS. The fire you can see because there's fewer fire while there's 85% are EMS calls. The other 15%, could be dumpster fires, vacant, property, in terms of like a brush fire or maybe a lot terms of fire. But I think about maybe 5% are actually structure fires, if that. So it's minimal in that sense.
Stu,
Yes.
Rockledge, where is Rockledge?
Rockledge is the green. Rockledge is the green.
The green is Rockledge?
Yes, and we're the magenta. I'm
Okay,
not a
that's
color
fine.
scheme
The
expert, but we're just.
rescue unit is gonna come down from the bottom?
What's that?
The rescue unit that's gonna aid to help where Station 1
Oh,
is at?
well, Station 2 is this one. What's gonna happen? The unit that's stationed here, there's two of them. One of them's coming in to occupy through partnership and a lease with the city at Station 2. So we're bringing it into the city 2.5 miles versus out on Lake Drive and 520. Now, Rockledge does have a
Right,
unit
okay.
down here as well. They have a station down here, and then they have one over here as well.
We're bringing the county in the station.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
one will remain.
Yes,
Mhm.
yes, so Station 2 is going to remain, again, as emphasized, Station 2 remains open, and the county's bringing their rescue unit in to operate out of there. So this is 2013, it just shows you now 2014, while it looks like there's less calls, but you can still see the concentration of the EMS calls. Then 15, this was when we started this process. You can see, again, you look even downtown, high concentration, all right here. So, again, I think I've already mentioned this, but Station 2, it's conducive and functional to remain in service to run EMS services. In large measure due to the size of the station, it's relatively a small station on a lot. It's closer, I probably have emphasized that already. It's closer for Brevard County Fire Rescue to respond. See, you can be here 7:30, 6:30. I had your back, sir.
Screw hey, IT, hey, cuz. Hey, baby. Now, chief, staff, city man,
So, again, we have the agreement, September 13th, that'll come before City Council, and you'll see there's a change coming up, but improvements to the existing Station 2, we need to, before we turn it over, we're leasing it to them, is that we want to, make some improvements to the exterior. It's in our community. There's some gutter repair, painting, and we're going to replace the doors on that.
Parking lot next door.
Well, it's another project not related to this, but we are going to, the dirt lot that gets flooded at Provost, unrelated to this, next year we're going to build a parking lot there, make it an actual parking lot with curb gutter that will help with some of the flooding and also direct that stormwater runoff appropriately, but also provide more organized, and one, it's going to look better aesthetically, in the heart of our, of the Diamond Square area, and which across the street, Wawa's going. So, and then I already mentioned the Brevard County is going to overlap service, and when we start this, probably about a couple months out, because we're going to be building all three stations at the same time. We've already selected the contractor for the main, what we'll call the headquarters station, and they're doing value engineering right now. And in mid-September, the bids are due back from what we're calling the satellite stations, and we have to, obviously, price dictates everything. We'll get those bids back. We'll take some of the value engineering that we're doing in Station 1, try to apply that to the satellite stations, because at the end of the day, our residents, ratepayers, and fire assessment, we have $8 million to build all 3 stations. And I know it seems like, well, that's a lot of money. When we started this out, when we did our initial research, based on what other communities were paying locally, we were at $6 billion. We were at $8 million, and we've already spent about $1 million. So we have $8 million to build this, to actually physically build, and to put the furniture, fixtures, and equipment in there. We already have the big equipment, but put like the stuff they need for IT. We've got some we've got some stuff, but we're going to try to, I don't want to say cannibalize, but stuff that we've purchased recently that can just automatically go into the new stations. We're not just going to throw something out that we bought 2 years ago. We're going to, be smart with the taxpayers' dollars. But so they will run with us. The county will come in. They've expressed a desire to run concurrently while they're there. And then so there's an overlap of service. And then once all of our stations are open, then they would assume full service responsibilities out of that station. This is a busy slide, a lot of information. He goes, this is really everything that's happened in a nutshell from September 29th, when the fire station location analysis was first presented to City Council. That was where we approved the study and the station relocations in that scenario 5B. Directed staff, again, I emphasize that. I think it's really a value-added benefit to the city, being able to keep the existing Station 2 open and bring EMS services closer. Again, if it's 60 miles an hour, that's 2.5 minutes, in terms of travel time. And we have that. I've crossed through, because last week I did this presentation, and at that point, the plans was to bring it next week to City Council, but because of a last-minute change to clarify something that we wanted, to make sure it was clear, the county attorney's got to review it. Our agenda items are due today, no later than tomorrow for next week's meeting. So we're pushing it off September 13th, because we don't want to rush, and we make sure, we want their attorneys to review, our attorneys to review it. We want to make sure it's done right. And then I don't know if it's on here, maybe it's come up on the next slide, but this Thursday, I mentioned the assistant city manager, myself, our consultant and the attorney go to court for the bond validation hearing. So that will happen. But this is just the history of from after we got this on September 29th, October 20th in District 1 at Jolie Smith, the fire station relocations study results were first discussed. That was the first, outside of this public workshop, of which I believe there were some residents there. It happened almost a year ago. So, but I know here, and then the mayor's town hall meeting, which was citywide, District 4 town hall meeting was presented. The reason why I call this out like this is because we didn't have this formal presentation, because the consultants had put together a presentation they presented here, and then we modified to take it out to the community, if you will, because we took ownership of this of the information to be presented to the community. So, and then with the Cocoa Police Department faith-based roundtable meeting, we presented to all the pastors and members of clergy. District 3 town hall meeting was presented. The Ministerial Alliance meeting over here at, thank you, Pastor Brian and Councilman Blake for helping organize that, bringing the ministers together and presenting to the group. The Diamond Square CRA board meeting on July 18th. Last week, the rain, well, I don't, based on the turnout today, I guess the rain didn't affect it, because we had about an hour before the rain stopped. But we presented within Diamond Square at Jolie Smith Center. And then today is the arguably the last presentation that we'll do prior to, then we'll probably have some going in as everything gets going, and to keep people up to date on what's happening, so everybody knows. Because the idea is, what we don't want people thinking like, like we've shared with some people on Michigan. Listen, I know the station's closing on Michigan, but you're still going to have fire service. There's nothing that's going to interfere with your fire service in Michigan. You look at the brown shaded area, everything that's not in the shaded area, we can respond to, we can get there. So the point is trying to keep, because everybody it's a very sensitive issue in terms of, like, I used to have one across the street, You know, I look out my window on Michigan, and there's the fire station, or in Diamond Square, there's Station 2. So, I know it's changed, and it's difficult, but, you know, the data demonstrates over and over that we can most effectively and efficiently handle all the city with the station locations as presented. I already mentioned, I talked about this probably, I did, about fire station, that we already have council approve the contractor, these satellite stations. We're waiting, we already mentioned that, I mentioned this, wow, I probably spoke too much. Probably should, that's
What?
today.
Did you get that on record now?
That's not even right.
Auntie, did you hear that? Ms. Pruitt, did you hear that?
I spoke too much, it's not even right. I'd just like to say that
Never.
I only had a 78-page presentation, slide presentation, hour and a half. The construction activities are due to commence mid-October, you know, maybe it might be a little bit later, but October 2016, we intend to start. I mean, we've actually already, we've done surveying on the station that's gonna be located downtown. We have to go in and take out some of the soil, because there's some benzopyrene. It's a PAH, and it's basically it's not that far, 18 inches, 24 inches deep, topsoil basically. But we still have to take it out. You know, the station's not going to be located on it, but it's best just to take it out because obviously we don't want any issues. There used to be an underground storage tank there that's already been taken out, and there's no contamination underneath it. There was an above-ground storage tank there, and there's no issues with that. But there is the benzopyrene, which is, some of it's naturally occurring, some of it could be from, literally, park your car on the lawn and let it run, and the exhaust can put out, you know, those contaminants into the grass. So, but the anticipated completion of construction is September 2017. And I'm done. That's any questions that you might have. I know, I feel bad, that they could give this presentation now, they probably have seen it so much.
Not me.
Hey,
I
good
haven't
job,
seen it
John.
as much as everybody
Which
else.
station will be?
Just that one more time.
Actually, we're gonna do them all concurrently in terms of construction. We don't know, we haven't seen the bids come in for the satellite stations. We knew who our contractor is for the main station. To the citizens' benefit, we're hoping they sharpen their pencil, because obviously if they sharpen their pencil well enough and they get off the station, we benefit from them being able to do it, all three, and the mobilization. So we're planning on doing all three concurrently. We're not gonna go 1, 1, 1. It's just best to do all three at the same time.
And you're gonna build 3 fire.
I'm not gonna do it. You seen these fingers or hands? But yes, we are, yes.
And it will be, all 3 will be completed September 17th.
That is when you look at the project schedule, so that, yes. If we get started in October, now, you know, we're not FDOT, I'm gonna say that. You know, I know there's no barrels on the road and US 1's open, and it took them 193 days more than they were supposed to. It's not gonna happen for us.
This is Coco.
Weather, it was more than weather, but, no, but we're pretty confident, you know, again, if we start October, we can have them all built by September. All the engineers, the architects, and the contractors say they don't have any problem with it.
In October, and contract have been awarded yet. That's pretty impressive.
Well,
that.
we have one contract awarded, the main one, and we don't have the satellite stations in. And when we get the satellite stations in, obviously they come in and they have to go to council. So they come in, we will have them to council at that first meeting in October. And so we already have one contract for the main, what we call the admin or headquarter stations. So the first meeting, we're going to bring contracts to council to get it underway. Because we're borrowing money, and you don't want money sitting in the bank, you know, when we're going to start incurring debt service, so.
Chances are it could be the same contract for all 3, right?
You know, that's hard to, while that would be an ideal situation, you don't know if somebody comes in and, you know, because it's all based on price too. I mean, price and quality, but, you know, everybody that bid were very quality firms, but one bid lower than the others. So if, you know, ideally, if not, if you have two, maybe if you even have, at the worst case, you're gonna have 2 contractors. One that we already have under contract, and then one for the 2 satellite stations. And we're actually retaining the architect of record to provide construction management services to help us and facilitate and get this done in a timely fashion. Because we don't want to, I mean, there's nothing worse than it just dragging on. We're.
And Ed has enough to do, and so is the fire chief.
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
The other thing that helps us with that, there was 2 different bid processes we had to do because of requirements from the state.
State law. Yeah.
State law on that. So that's why Station 1's kind of done, and we already got a contractor. And the other 2 are more simple bid, straight bid, right, Ed?
Yeah.
And when they're done, they can be awarded right away. And they're gonna be in, I think we're
September 15th.
September, we moved it to September, it was the end of August, but September 15th. And if those are done, we'll know who it's gonna be. So then we're just waiting for,
Actually,
The bond.
what really is, we need those in, so then when we go to the market, the city, I mean, I'll say I, but when we go to the market with our we've actually already have our underwriters already selected as well. We selected 2, and so we're gonna give them both, here's how much money we need, it's under the 8 million. Give us your best price, so we know. So we didn't wanna stick with 1, we went with 2, so they're gonna bid. They're gonna each give us a bid, we're gonna evaluate it based on the cost of issuance, what services they're providing us, and so we've got all that done. And then and again, on the first meeting in September 13th, we'll have the agreement, with the county, although the agreement's really not gonna take effect until that was one of the changes we had to work on. It was taking effect immediately, like, wait, the stations ain't gonna be done till October of next year. But we're getting the agreement done because we wanted to assure the public that we had a plan in place, working with the county. And then also, we thought it was important, to be quite honest, that we have station, the recognition that, based on council and the mayor's direction about keeping Station 2 open to provide at least enhanced, EMS services. And we were successful in doing that with the county. And which I should thank, Chief Schulmeyer, the county manager, the deputy, Stockton Whitten, and then Frank Abbott with the deputy county manager, because they made it possible.
Is there a backup plan, or what's the backup plan? Let's say, for instance, once you get everything in place,
Yes.
and then when problems start to arrive, instead of 4.5 minutes, you find it at 6.5 minutes or 7 minutes. Do you have something, are you gonna revisit this to rectify
Well,
that? And,
we, based on all the roadway conditions and everything that's known and population and all that, we are, and I wish the GIS person, because it was an independent contractor, we didn't want to pay them to come out because we kind of felt like we had a really good grasp of the data. We don't see any major changes in the roadway conditions in terms of speed limit changes or additional intersections. Obviously, to be honest, we're not fans of, I know a lot of people are in the neighborhood, speed humps. Speed humps slow down public safety, and plus, you think of how many times you go over a speed hump in a parking lot and you hate it because of your car. Well, try having a $1.2 million, how many ton truck?
how many tons? 8 tons.
8-ton truck going over one of those things. They have to slow down, and that delays response time. So, I mean,
that's what I'm saying.
Well,
Right now,
yes.
everything looks great, but I'm
Yes.
saying, let's say, once it's completed, and then here we are, a year from now, 2 years from now, we
Oh.
see that it's taking
well,
6.5, 7 minutes to get.
this goes back to the coverage that we have now, going back to 1981, the last station being built. That coverage. But
Yeah, you're correct. Once we get everything in place, and by we, I mean him, but
it's good.
we'll be taking a look at that to make sure we were right, and the GIS people were right when we got started. But the way this map's played out, I think you may have seen, we looked at 15 different scenarios in the beginning to see how we could move them around and make them, and we narrowed them down to those 3 as what would give us the best by our history, and looking at where we've been, the best scenario. But these are done considering road speeds, traffic conditions, the type roads, whether they're 2 lanes, 4 lanes, dead ends, roundabout, whatever that's already there. So all that was taken in consideration. So we feel pretty good about the data, but we'll have to look at it and manage it. The things that affect us over time is what we look at as concentration and distribution. Well, now we're distributing out based on this data, our stations, because now we're a city of 14 square miles versus last station built in the 80s. You know, 2 of them were built way before that, so we were about half that size. So to spread out and provide that 4-minute coverage, 4-minute is pretty good, but even those other shades, we can probably get there in 5 minutes or so, but National Fire Protection Association says you should get there in 4 minutes in an urban metro area. And then beyond that, if you're in a suburban area, a little bit longer, and rural, a little bit longer from that standpoint. So most of these areas, even though some of them are suburban, we can feel like we can still get there. But what affects us is when our run load goes up, you know, we have the same number of units, and then that's when we'll come back to our council and say, hey, or manager and say, hey, but we don't foresee that happening in a while, especially with this model where we have our automatic aid with the county that helps us with 44 and 29 up there, and then our mutual aid agreements with Rockledge and a couple of the other areas, that we all got to help each other, because you heard him talk about needing 15. Well, we have a minimum of 10 on duty each day, so we still need 5 more people. So we get an engine from the county, you know, and we get a rescue from the county that helps us get to that 15 model. So we always need each other on every call, and that's just a house fire. We get a commercial fire, big building, we got to bring in everybody from all over. So yeah, we'll be constantly looking at it.
Hey, Chief.
Yes.
You go to Merritt Island quite a bit, right?
We go over there on a regular basis, yeah. Yeah, they just, you know, they had a, what was it, smoke in the mall? And, man, there was units coming from everywhere to be there. We had a couple over there with one of our districts, and Chief Lim was
We're the
over.
closest ladder.
And the building is on it, are there any minority contracts available to help build these stations or anything?
I don't recall.
No,
if
that's
there's-
not a requirement. The contractor does use local.
It is a local
labor. It's from
contractor. I don't know if
Rockledge.
it is, yeah, it's actually based out of Rockledge. There was not a requirement for minority contracting as a whole. I don't know, we'd have to talk and find out who they're using for their subs.
But it is a local contractor from Brevard County.
Yes,
Which one?
certified,
W&J.
oh, W&J.
W&J Construction. They were on Cox Road and they moved to Rockledge a couple of years ago. So,
Was it 90% of their subcontractors
Are local.
within Brevard County?
Mhm. Yep.
So their subs, when they go out for bid with their subs, any sub in the county will have an opportunity to bid
Mhm.
on their work. Yes, it's W&J Construction. They've been here forever, so yeah.
My cousin Jack is being modest. She's a former firefighter.
Yes, she is.
Oh.
Was it Coco too? I know on the base, I know that. But did you ever get volunteering the time with us here, Jimmy?
I didn't volunteer, I started at the city of Cocoa.
Oh, wow.
I resided for 5 years and then transitioned to the Space Center.
Okay.
So my comment about evolutions like really started way back when.
I understood everything you said because I was here when it started,
Oh, okay.
so I got that.
You didn't have the,
Wow.
the restrooms.
impressive.
No, you can dress like they're gonna be putting them in.
No, we shared restroom
Yeah.
facilities. When the bell rang at 2 o'clock, we all went into the bathroom and emptied the bladder and you hit the road.
Mhm.
We had no issues. We all slept in the bunk room.
Just for the
So
record.
the separate facility things, it's like, please.
From a human resource management standpoint, it's a changing environment
Well, it
now,
didn't change
especially with
for me.
millennials. With millennials and,
Like you're right there. 5 years.
I agree, but it's just like.
I think Jackie was here when we had a fire chief that thought women should not be in the fire service.
None of the firefighters thought women should be in
Salisbury?
fire services.
Was it
None of the fire personnel thought women should be in fire services.
Well, I'm happy to report that that's not the case
Was
today.
it Salisbury? Do you remember?
Yeah, it was Salisbury.
You can't be related.
Ma'am, if you'd like to drive my car, I'll go ahead.
I'll be a sister.
No, I want to drive that new fire truck.
You come in and blow by the city of Cocoa, you can't.
We could arrange a ride in it.
Chief, tell Jackie how many female firefighters we have now.
We have 3.
Three.
Good for you.
We have 3.
I mean,
Three?
3? Yeah, we-
Yes, ma'am.
You even drive. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
oh, yeah.
one's got a
There's
driver.
two of them that drive.
All right, we're
One of them hadn't been here
gonna,
long
Ms.
enough.
Jenkins has
I
a
walked in
question.
the door
Yes,
and
ma'am.
said,
No, I
there's
don't
no
have a
apparatus
question.
here,
Okay.
and I'm not gonna drive.
But I
started
just want to
in,
say how much I
you know,
appreciate all of you all.
Very good.
This is my city.
Right.
I was born here 88 years ago, and I think
All
that
right.
You ain't that old.
I'm probably, thank you, I'll give you a hug before you
I know they said that, not you.
leave. Well, and I just want to compliment you and, because I have always been very interested and participated in anything that you've done in Cocoa. And I still feel that way, even though I'm incapacitated now and I can't make meetings and things like I would like to. But I want you to know that I always have, and I'm very happy knowing that you all are doing the very best that you can for us. And I brought that up about my being 88 years old, and I wanted you to know that this has been my city longer than any of you, I'm sure.
Oh, absolutely.
And I'm still interested in what happens here. And I want to let you know that I know what you're doing, I'm always on top of it, even though I can't present myself or come here. I want you to know that I'm proud of all of you.
Thank you.
And especially that all of you took care of my big baby sitting over there. As long as he's here, I want you to continue to do that. And he always have my support, and you all have my support.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Born here, 1928.
Her birthday's August 29th. I know I'm gonna get in trouble, but it's not.
Yeah, that's it.
August
Happy birthday,
29th.
Grandma.
August 29, 1928.
Well, I'm glad you came out today because I became a resident of Cocoa 41 years ago today.
Very nice. And
On the bus, must have broke down.
proud of you now.
41 years ago
Ms.
today.
Cruz, you wanna say something, Ms. Cruz? You finished our team, Ms. Cruz? I'm just trying to help the, court report.
Go right ahead, Mr. Blake.
Yeah, he said something about the big truck. Is that the reason why nobody hadn't said nothing about putting the, what you call, the bumps in the road on Val?
Pumps, yeah, speed bumps.
Speed
Tables, or whatever y'all wanna call
Is
it,
it
tables.
because of the, is it
That's-
because of the traffic or what?
Well, it's really an enforcement issue, and I mean, that's not knocking the police department, it's a matter of, as we find the hot spots, we try to enforce the speed limits, but it slows down response time. I mean, not just for fire, I mean, because they've got, again, 8-ton vehicle, but law enforcement, if there's an emergency, somebody calls 911, if they've got to come, I mean, and we've had some vehicles, I mean, I'm telling you, the transmission, it's left behind. You know, I mean, the rear axle, and it's not fun, they're not inexpensive cars, and especially when it comes to, I mean, because at the end of the day, the men and women of the fire service, if somebody calls 911, I mean, they're gonna slow down as much as they can, but they're probably still gonna go over it a little bit more than they should because they're concerned about you.
Okay, another question. Are these over here and these over here, these are what, city council?
This is city council, and these are the staff, these are our
Who are
staff.
these over here, just staff?
Yeah, that's our community
The staff.
services director,
Staff, yeah, you're right.
our utilities director,
We're
our
just-
administrative services director, and then our assistant city clerk, Angela Ferguson, and then our police, assistant finance director, and our public works director.
So he's city council,
The ones sitting right
one
here.
sitting here.
Tiny, that's my-
Except for the newlywed,
Tiny.
except for the newlywed.
The only reason I asked, because I thought all of these and all of these was, city council.
We never get anything done.
Oh, come on, yes you do. But the reason why I asked, because I want to know the qualification to become a city council.
You gotta get your picture, see that guy right there.
What are the qualifications?
Live in the city of Cocoa, ma'am.
And just start,
There's a form you must fill out,
Must
Mrs.
fill
Cruz,
out.
yes, ma'am, and campaign rules and regulations.
Oh, okay.
They wanna know your firstborn, how much money you make, I mean, it's the financial state.
Oh.
They can give you more details, but yes, ma'am, it's not hard, Mrs. Cruz.
Oh, I just wanna know.
Excellent question.
Michael did it, it's not that hard.
Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna just take that one, I respect womanhood to the
But
full.
that's just,
He knows I'm just kidding.
oh, they ain't right here.
Yes.
Is it permanent?
Yes.
That's, yeah.
He's in charge of community services, which is health and, or excuse me, wow.
You're
health and-
going-
Neighborhood services, code enforcement, building permitting, planning and zoning,
You're
economic
going in
development.
District for Virginia Park.
No, that's Mr. Blake.
I'm-
Oh, they done
but-
change it?
Virginia Park.
Last time I was here, it was.
But he's code enforcement, that's what she's
Oh,
asking.
for code
Oh, code
enforcement.
enforcement.
Yeah, that's it, Steve Belton, ma'am, Ms.
Oh,
Pugh.
oh,
Do you have his card? You make sure we get your card, Ms. Pugh.
Steve, I hadn't heard from you, I'm waiting on you.
Oh, I think you're thinking from, we have four Steves in my office, so.
Ms. Pugh, don't worry about it, they all look alike.
Oh. But some of us have hair.
This is not recorded, is it? It's too late. You gotta have a little laughter, man. It's
No,
too
that's all I
much.
want to know, I just want to know who you got get in touch with for something in
The hairy one.
community.
Yes, yes.
Oh,
Yes, he's the one, Mrs. Pugh.
Yes.
Yes,
Oh,
ma'am.
okay, so if I want to run for city council, who I get the paper from?
That
You
lady
speak
on
to
the
the
lady
clerk's
come to our-
The city clerk's office, so when you first come in the building, the first door on the right.
Oh, okay.
Angela Clerk. And Carrie Clerk. And Colleen Clerk.
They have packets available.
Yes.
You just stop in.
Thank you.
And you just walk in and they give you a whole package of explaining
Yeah.
everything.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
What's wrong, Lord?
Oh, one more thing I want to say.
Yes, ma'am.
I want to thank whoever in charge of changing these red lights. I want to thank you for changing the one on VAR, because we didn't have the worst wreck there on VAR and from VAR Lake Drive, coming from Lake Drive, coming onto VAR, crossing 520. They can have the worst wreck there. Thank God we didn't. But by the time the light changed and we get started, 3 cars get crossed, and my car was the 3rd car. And before they get crossed to 520, the light changed. And then people on 520 attack it all.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so if I'd have paid attention to that light, I probably would have been in a wreck. But the light don't stay on long enough now. I don't know who fixed it, but somebody fixed it because it's changed. And now more than 2 or 3 cars can go across before the light
That's
changes
right.
again.
Thank you, Ms. Pugh.
Thank you.
We can get Blake 520 that way too, but I'm not gonna press my luck. I'm not gonna press my luck, 'cause I know Ruth Collins will be here. If she sees this video, she's coming.
Any more questions?
You heard about ethics for a
Jackie, did you have some questions?
No, I'm good.
You sit there. God bless you. Good to see you.
Thank you. That's our service.
Hey, that's okay. You still here.
Wait a minute, you mean Jackie took your keys away from you, auntie?
Yeah, she did. Took my keys, all of my privileges.
Do you know him in the spank?
Yeah, she said, you busy now, so you stay home.
Well, can I get one more favor? When it's time to take my daddy keys away, can y'all help me?
Yeah. Sell tickets.
Watch might get beat up. Mr. Kane said you're gonna take pictures. Look at him, Mike. Look at him.
Hey, if you need a fundraiser,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
that'd be a good fundraiser for
Yes,
you.
it will. You see me get beat up, of course.
Try to take your daddy's keys away. I want to see
I'm
that.
not gonna do that.
We'd all pay money to watch
Get
that.
that out, spank.
So would I?
You know, I used to spank him.
Yes, ma'am, auntie. I'm gonna keep my mouth closed because I don't want you to tell the secrets on me. We're on camera.
Any more questions? Any of the staff? Guys got anything you want to add? Say?
John did a good job with presentation like always.
He does.
It's
He
a
could
team
probably
effort.
recite it in his sleep now. How about you, Mr. Rover? You got anything you want to
I
say?
just want to thank the people for participating in our great town hall meeting.
I think everybody.
Congratulations on the rest of the summer.
Thank you, sir. You do likewise.
How about you, Mr. Mayor? And And Mr. Blake?
At your next meeting, I think we'd be kind enough to have some food or something to eat. No, I want to say thank you, job well done, District Number 2, Representative. One more thing, if I could say, we have 3 people on council that's up for re-election. Please keep them in mind. That's the young lady in red, first, we're gonna do ladies first, and the 2 thorns here to my right. Mayor Parrish and Councilman Don Beauvais. Please keep them in mind.
And also, Councilman Furbridge is not here tonight because he is very ill. He's actually under hospice care now. So if you all could keep him in your prayers, we would greatly appreciate it.
And his wife Nancy.
We miss him, so.
It's coming from there.
Yeah. And his wife Nancy, yes. Awesome. All right.
Just while I got the calendar out, just to share a couple dates, because there's a couple things coming up. The mayor's community summit on engaging and creating a safer community will be held on, it's September 8th? Oh, it's not on here. Is it September? It's Thursday, September 8th. It's just Thursday, September 8th at 6 o'clock at the Civic Center. Okay. Then that's probably the most important. Then obviously, we've got some other things with the normal budget meetings and stuff like that. But that's really an opportunity to get out. I mean, it's the second time we've had it. You know, good panel, discussion issues, you know, creating a dialogue with the community, talking about issues in crime, law enforcement, engagement, and just it's a great opportunity to continue the progress that's been made, you know, between law enforcement and the community. So we're not, you know, we have a relationship and we're not like the next victim or next community that's facing tensions unnecessarily, because we can at least sit down and speak to each other.
Amen.
All right. Thank you all very
Thank
much
you.
for coming.
Appreciate you coming out.
Yes, and Zach, you know, Big Zach.
John, I see you in the light like
Yes.
So you're gonna be at Station 1, right?
Yes, I almost got run over the other day.